Why do people say that when a goblin begs for mercy, you must never soften your heart? This Goblin King is the best example. Right now, he looks pitiful, but in reality, he has already made up his mind about how he will take revenge once he escapes. Just like when he was young, whenever an adventurer softened their heart and spared him, he would wait for a chance and launch a sneak attack when they least expected it. What awaited the adventurer next would be torture worse than death. In fact, many kind-hearted female adventurers have fallen into the goblin's clutches because of this, and the Goblin King relied on this trick to hunt down countless adventurers. Step by step, he became the king of their tribe. But unfortunately for him, the one this goblin ran into this time was Goblin Slayer. For them, not killing goblins outright was already an act of mercy, let alone actually sparing him. Not long before this, after the Goblin King sent out 2 goblin heroes as the king of the tribe, he actually fled in the opposite direction of the battlefield. He wanted to get far away from this area, then return to his lair and take revenge later, on the road as he escaped. Images of his failed battle kept flashing through the Goblin King's mind. Frustration and rage filled his head. Faintly, the Goblin King seemed to be showing signs of a breakthrough. Although goblins are a weak race, their upper limit is extremely high. You could even say they have no limit at all. Every brush with death gives them new insight, allowing them to gain greater wisdom and power. Just as the Goblin King was running away and planning how to take revenge, a man's voice interrupted his thoughts. That man was none other than Goblin Slayer, whose killing intent had already taken over. At this moment, Goblin Slayer was holding a short blade. His body was covered in blood. His overwhelming presence made the Goblin King afraid. And what made the Goblin King break down even more was what Goblin Slayer said next. It turned out, the reason Goblin Slayer had not appeared on the main battlefield was that he had gone alone to the Goblin King's lair and killed every goblin child inside. He also rescued the imprisoned girl along the way. This was the same as destroying the Goblin King's lair, cutting off his escape route completely. After hearing everything Goblin Slayer had said, the Goblin King's emotions shifted from shock to fury. He picked up his weapon and charged at Goblin Slayer. Meanwhile, back on the main battlefield, the Goblin hero's personal guards had nearly all been wiped out by the adventurers. All that remained were some goblin children, and those 2 goblin heroes, facing the rampaging goblin hero. Spearman and Heavy Warrior had a clear division of roles. This battle completely changed their understanding of goblins, because the goblin hero before them, whether in strength or combat experience, was not something beginner adventurers could handle. Now Heavy Warrior had been attacking for a long time without breaking through. Female Knight decisively stepped forward to support Heavy Warrior. The 2 worked perfectly together. Female Knight was responsible for drawing the goblin hero's attention, while Heavy Warrior looked for the right moment to strike. But the goblin hero was thinking the same thing. It immediately exposed a deliberate opening. They pretended to make Heavy Warrior think the moment had come, but in fact, behind them, a goblin child had already prepared to launch a sneak attack. By the time Heavy Warrior noticed, he was already caught in a pincer attack. Just as the goblin child's dagger was about to stab Heavy Warrior gritted his teeth and interrupted the goblin child's attack. Female Knight also rushed forward at the first possible moment. She blocked the goblin hero's fierce assault, and even cut off its fingers in the process. Finally, with a furious roar from Heavy Warrior, the goblin hero was cut in half at the waist. Compared with Heavy Warrior, Spearman was having a much harder time in his fight. On one hand, it was because the goblin hero Spearman was fighting, used a weapon that was difficult to deal with. On the other hand, it was because Witch was a mage. She could not stand on the same front line as Spearman, but judging from Witch's calm expression, there should not be much of a problem. A single goblin hero was still not enough to threaten Spearman's life. Then Spearman began adjusting himself. It was time to end this battle. Meanwhile, on Goblin Slayer's side, the battle between Goblin Slayer and the Goblin King was also nearing its end. During this fight, the Goblin King was suppressing Goblin Slayer purely through his weapon advantage. Goblin Slayer's armor simply could not withstand the Goblin King's attacks. Even his toughest shield was chopped to ruin by the Goblin King. And after Goblin Slayer was knocked down, the Goblin King's brutal nature was fully exposed. He did not deliver a fatal blow to Goblin Slayer. Instead, he kept humiliating and tormenting him. This furious stomping left the already weakened Goblin Slayer completely motionless. But the Goblin King still did not feel satisfied. He still wanted to continue torturing Goblin Slayer. Fortunately, just as the Goblin King's giant axe was about to fall, Priestess appeared there. She summoned the miracle, Holy Wall, and blocked the Goblin King's attack. Immediately after that, behind the Goblin King, she summoned another Holy Wall, trapping the Goblin King between them. Priestess's sudden appearance not only interrupted the Goblin King's attack, but also completely turned the battle around.